Hey guys, it's Don here from the board. Thanks for coming along and checking out this video. So, over the last couple of weeks really now, I've recently moved offices into a different role. And as part of that move, I was kind of concerned that moving into a new office space where people weren't familiar with me and my craze for keyboards, using clicky keyboards would be a problem. I'd asked on the podcast, for people to give me their thoughts and their feedback on whether I should move towards tactile switches just to alleviate the potential issues of people complaining in my new office environment. The end result of that, now being in there for several weeks, is that I'm still using box jades with no complaints at all whatsoever. But I have made a conscious choice during stand-up meetings that happen nearby that I switch over to my top row keyboard so that it's not as distinct. So it's not going to disturb these people who are having a stand-up meeting, because it's pretty important, the meeting that they have. And the feedback that I've got from the people walking by, and if you listen to our podcast, you would know this, is that there's no issue with it whatsoever. People love the fact that I'm wacky enough to have a split keyboard, custom keyboards, custom macro pads and stuff like that. So really cool. But it led me to the thought of exactly how loud are mechanical keyboards for an office environment. And so in this video, whether it works or not, and I'm going to say right now this is not scientific in any standard of science, but this is really indicative, I'm going to be exploring what sound fall off it's like as an example of using a mechanical keyboard. So I realize my desk setup is a bit messy right now. I'm trying to punch this out before my family gets home, because in order for this to work, I need the relative quiet and non-disturbedness. So let's roll. So what I've got set up right now is I have, as part of the switch library, I have a keyboard that is built with Box Navies. And I've chosen Box Navies because they are loud by definition. They are a click bar switch, they are a heavy click bar, so in theory it should generate a lot of noise. It is also stock. So we're talking about stock PCB mounted stabilizers that are not lubed. There are no O-rings. These are TaiHao ABS keycaps in a cheap plastic case, so there's no dampening or anything like that. So this is a ideal, perfect example of what a loud 60% would be. Now you'll notice I'm also not using my desk mat, and that is to replicate noise bouncing off a hard surface rather than a desk mat actually absorbing it. And what you'll see here is my phone, and I've actually got a sound meter running, just a very simple app, and it's just indicative, okay, because we're going to use the same app and it's not calibrated any differently so that we can see relative scales. And right now, me talking loudly for my microphone and recording, you're seeing in the range of between 50 to 70, okay, where we're looking 50 to 80 even, but of course there's also background noise happening out with the street traffic and stuff like that. So I'm going to let that settle down. I'm going to do some typing, and it's going to be right there, and we'll be able to see, because the microphone's down here on the phone, what kind of noise this Navy produces right next to it. Now you got to remember, on a sound meter in decibels, okay, it's logarithmic. So every 10 decibels is actually a scale of, I think, 100 times louder than the 10 points before it. So let's just let it settle down. So we're seeing around 27, 30 decibels, and let's start doing some random typing on this Box Navy. So in case you didn't quite catch it, it was actually going up to about 67, 68 decibels. So we're talking about approximately, 40 decibels, okay, from about 30-ish to almost 7-ish. So almost 40 decibels. Now if we look at the scale here, it's not going to read very well, but it's basically saying 30 is a whisper, okay, because there's nothing going on. 70 decibel is busy traffic or a vacuum cleaner, and 60 decibels is normal conversation at 3 feet or roughly 1 meter away. So if you were actually typing right next to a coworker and they had their ear right next to your keyboard, it would be just as loud as a vacuum cleaner or busy traffic, in theory. So what I've got is, I've got a tape measure, and I've got a webcam on a USB extension cable, and I'm going to run it that away. Now, that away on the screen is this way, and the reason is, if you are sitting in an office environment, you're not going to measure in front of you, because that's where your monitors are likely to be, and sound is going to hit that and reflect back towards you. It'll also reflect upwards, and typically, you know, if you've got cubicle walls, people on the other side of a cubicle is not going to be as impacted. Of course, sound going up and bouncing and everything else, yes, they're still going to hear it, but it's going to be dispersed. It's going to be absorbed and all that kind of stuff. Energy loss, right? Similarly, there's not much point measuring directly behind you because you're in the way, right? The sound's going to be coming off you, it's going to be bouncing off you, and you're furnishing. So if you have a chair and everything else. So realistically, you're going to be thinking about coworkers who sit on the sides of you because there's not as much that is going to be impacting that delivery of sound. So I'm going to go that way because that's where my hallway is. Whereas if I go that way, it's a wall, and that's not going to get me very far. So I'm going to measure out 1 meter. Got a webcam propped up, and we'll see how that goes. I've got a clamp here as well on the table, and I'm going to see if I can successfully clamp this tape measure. I might not be able to. We'll just see how that goes. But if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, well, that's just how it is, isn't it? Okay, so there is the tape measure. I'm going to come on. Okay, let's probably take away that bit of envelopey stuff. I use that instead of a coaster because if my daughter gets hold of it, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a meter, and then what you're going to see in this top corner is going to be the sound meter. Now I can't actually see what the heck I'm doing here, but let's see. So in that camera corner, if you can see the tape, it's a meter to there, and let's prop the decibel meter there. Oh, we've got to be able to see it, aren't we? Almost. How's that? Okay, so a meter away with me talking, it's still hitting around 57, 60-ish, 60 odd, okay? And let's just let that settle down again. So you can see it's getting down to about 29, 30, depending on what's happening on the traffic outside. And so with the keyboard in the same spot, a meter away roughly, let's see what happens. So just a bit of random bashing there, random keyboard bashing, we can actually see it only got to 48 or so decibels. So that's actually a reduction of almost 20 decibels 1 meter away. And that kind of correlates very similarly to what science talks about in sound fall off, because sound energy actually dissipates incredibly well through a medium like air. It dissipates, differently depending on the type of medium, the type of gas and fluids and things like that. But 1 meter away, we can already see that's approximately drop off of 20 decibels. Now let's move that out to 2 meters and see how that goes. So you'll have to trust me that that's 2 meters, and hopefully when I move that tape you're able to see that it was actually 2 meters. Now with me talking, I can see that the talking is also coming down a little bit. It's sort of sitting more around the 50-ish range rather than the 60s. So that's okay. Let's wait for it to settle down. So we're getting down to about 32-ish, right? Okay. So let's try typing again at 2 meters. So I could see that it went up a little bit into the 40s, but for most part it was actually hanging around the mid to high 30s. Which is actually pretty cool. So let's just go for another round again, just to make sure that that was okay. Went all the way down to 27 just then. All right, so let's do some typing. So the highest that I saw just then was actually 40. And it was kicking around the 37 or so. I think that's a pretty good drop, again, of almost 10 decibels, not quite 10 decibels. So let's take it out to 3 meters and see what that sounds like. Kind of running out of space to climb over the tape to get to 3 meters. So at 3 meters, with me talking, we're actually seeing it kick around sort of the 50s, about 55, thereabouts, up to 59, depending on how loud I'm pitching my voice in the direction that I'm facing. Because if I'm facing towards the actual phone, it can actually kick a bit higher. So there was a bit of a 56, 58 just then. But if we go silent again, down to 27, about 32, okay? And of course with just how it is, maybe I should just adjust that a little bit so you can see it better. Okay, and you can see the box fan on the floor and the kitty barricade that is there, part of child defenses, and the cans of baked bean in the background sitting on the floor in my hallway. All right, so here we go. 3 meters sound test. So it's really interesting because it's still getting up to sort of the low, mid 40s, depending on the accumulation of noise from the outside. And to be honest, when you get down to the lower end of how decibels work, small amounts of changes means a lot, because you got to remember it's logarithmic, right? So something that's like, 36 versus 46. 46 is 100 times louder by definition. But when you go from, say, 32 to 37, it's not anywhere near 100 times. It's probably only like 60 times, 70 times. So, and energy at certain wavelengths carry better across distances. And this is where we're starting to see the bass noise that the keyboard is generating is probably carrying better compared to some of the frequencies that the keyboard is potentially generating that are not carrying that extra distance. Because now, even me talking, you can see that it's fluctuating quite a significant amount as the vibrations of my voice in the different pitches and tones that I use will create that response. Now, for you listening to the video though, the keyboard sounds exactly the same because my microphone is right above the keyboard. So that's the reason why. But what is actually being picked up over there is that you're still going to get around a mid-30s, potentially up towards the high 40s when you're 3 meters away. Now, 3 meters away in a cubicle situation is actually quite a good distance. Like a standard cubicle farm, you're only going to get like maybe 1.5 meters to yourself before you're encroaching on your co-workers. So this is 2 to 3 cubicles away in a 3 meter situation. Now let me just break down this setup quickly. So when my wife gets home, she's not going to be like, what the heck are you doing? Okay, now let's turn that off. So if we have a look at this, between 30 to 40 decibels, 40 decibels is meant to be a quiet library. So if you're typing away and somebody 3 cubicles away from you is only getting about 40 decibels from a Box Navy keyboard with no lubing, with no O-rings, in a stock, bog, rattly plastic case with no dampening underneath it, and they're going to complain to you about it being loud and annoying, well, what do you say to that? Because according to this app, now I know this isn't calibrated, but it's a relatively good scale because, normal conversation at 3 feet, 60 decibels, it's pitching right there, okay? A quiet office is 50 decibels. So realistically, if people in your office are complaining about a clicky keyboard, it's not the volume that's annoying them. It's the fact that it's clicking. I guess in that sense, it's that pattern, it's that repetition, it's the staccato of the keyboard rather than the volume. So if someone complains and they say, your keyboard is loud, you could probably say to them, actually, it's not loud. That's not what's annoying you. It's not the volume that's the problem. It's the fact that I'm typing in a particular rhythm that's bothering you. It would really be no different to say somebody with a pen that they're clicking in meetings that's just, like, for example, I've got a pen right here that's got one of those, and if we let this settle down, this pen generates as much as the keyboard does at a close distance, right? Of course, if we went and did the same test further away, then you'll probably find very similar responses. It's the sound type, not the sound volume, that seems to be, well, that would be the issue with what's going on. So there you have it. I thought I'd just run a little bit of a fun experiment there, just with some pseudoscience. Yes, I acknowledge that it is not hard science. I acknowledge that it's not precise science. It's not going to exactly be very repeatable unless if I had a calibrated, good quality sound meter that could actually do the logging of all this kind of activity. But it is indicative. It is indicative in that when you get past about a meter from you, it really falls off and it's relatively quiet. It is relatively quiet. Rather instead, the noise that they're going to be whinging about is the actual click and not how loud the click is. So there you have it. Some keyboard science for you. Now, as you can notice, I've still got a mustache happening, and I'm hoping that I will be able to release this video during Movember. I don't know how the progress of this is going to be because I'm recording this ahead of time because I have a work trip, which means the Monday of the 19th, I'm not going to be home, so I'm actually going to be releasing this ahead of time. And yeah, what can I say? Movember, great cause, supports men's health, prostate cancer, testicular cancer, as well as men's mental health. I have a keyboard that I've modified slightly. I've decorated it. It's a talking piece that is going to be part of a giveaway. So if you want to get involved, please check out the links below. Make a donation. If there is a male born person in your life that matters to you, because every dollar towards this cause may be of help to them at some point in their life. I say thank you to all of our Patreon supporters as well. Thank you to all of our supporters listening to our podcast and interact with us on Facebook, on Reddit, on Slack. If you want an invite, please chuck us an email at theboardpodcast@gmail.com and I'll get you an invite as well. So thanks very much for checking out the video. Please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that share button. And yeah, I'll catch you next time.